You did everything right this morning. You skipped the drive-through, you passed on the donuts in the break room, you sat down at your own kitchen table and poured yourself what you genuinely believed was a healthy breakfast. And yet, 2 hours later, your blood sugar looks like you ate a slice of birthday cake. If that has ever happened to you, I need you to stay with me today because the problem is not your willpower. The problem is that some of the most widely recommended breakfast foods for people with diabetes are, from a blood sugar standpoint, among the worst things you could possibly eat before 9 in the morning. I am Dr. Clara Rossi, and I have spent over 20 years as a board-certified endocrinologist helping patients with type 2 diabetes, prediabetes, and insulin resistance take control of their metabolic health. I have personally reviewed thousands of continuous glucose monitor tracings, those 24-hour graphs that show us exactly what every bite of food does inside your body. And I can tell you with certainty that breakfast is the meal where most of my patients unknowingly do the most damage. A landmark 2015 study published in Diabetologia involving over 2,700 participants confirmed something I had been seeing in my clinic for years. The same food eaten in the morning produces a significantly larger glucose spike than the same food eaten later in the day because morning cortisol and natural insulin resistance make your body especially vulnerable at that hour. Today, I am going to walk you through 6 common breakfast choices that silently spike blood sugar in people with diabetes and prediabetes. And then I am going to reveal the number one worst breakfast of all. And this one is going to shock you because it is something you will find recommended on nearly every major diabetes nutrition website. I will explain the specific biological reason it does so much damage, and I will share the story of a patient of mine whose morning numbers dropped dramatically once she stopped eating it. Everything we discuss here is backed by published, peer-reviewed research. But please remember that everything we discuss is for educational purposes only. You must never stop taking your prescribed diabetes medications or change your medical regimen without speaking directly to your own physician first. Let us get into it. Number 1, orange juice. I understand why this one is hard to hear. Orange juice feels clean, it feels natural. You see the picture of the sun and the orange on the carton, and your brain files it under healthy. But here is what is actually happening inside your body. When you eat a whole orange, the fiber in that fruit acts like a net. It catches the sugar and slows it down as it moves through your digestive system, giving your pancreas time to respond. When you drink orange juice, that net is gone. The sugar in that glass hits your bloodstream almost as fast as the sugar in a can of soda. A 2013 study published in the BMJ analyzing data from over 180,000 participants found that consuming whole fruit was associated with a lower risk of type 2 diabetes, while drinking fruit juice was associated with a significantly higher risk. One 8-ounce glass of orange juice contains roughly 26 grams of sugar, with virtually no fiber to slow the absorption. I had a patient named Richard, 61 years old, a retired school teacher who came to me frustrated because his fasting numbers were excellent, but his post-breakfast readings were always above 200. When I looked at his food diary, the culprit was obvious: a tall glass of fresh squeezed orange juice every single morning. He thought fresh squeezed was different from store-bought. It is not. Sugar is sugar once the fiber is removed. We replaced that glass with a whole small orange eaten alongside some protein, and his post-breakfast numbers dropped by over 60 points within a week. Leave me a comment below. What is the one breakfast item you have been eating because you truly believed it was helping your blood sugar? Number 2, flavored yogurt. This one breaks my heart a little because yogurt can be an outstanding food for blood sugar management, yikes, when it is the right kind. The problem is that the yogurt most people grab off the shelf, the kind with the fruit on the bottom or the granola on top, is closer to dessert than it is to a health food. A single container of strawberry-flavored yogurt can contain anywhere from 19 to 26 grams of added sugar. That is nearly as much sugar as a chocolate bar. Your body does not care that it came in a container with a picture of a strawberry and the word probiotic on the label. The glucose spike is the same. If you enjoy yogurt, switch to plain full-fat Greek yogurt. The protein content is roughly double that of regular yogurt, and the fat slows gastric emptying, which means the small amount of natural lactose sugar enters your bloodstream gradually rather than all at once. Add a handful of raw walnuts and a few fresh berries, and you have a genuinely excellent blood sugar breakfast. But the sweetened kind sitting in most refrigerators right now, that is working against you. And here is the detail that catches most patients off guard. Many of the yogurts labeled low fat are actually worse for blood sugar than their full fat counterparts. Because when manufacturers remove fat, they almost always add sugar to compensate for the lost flavor. The fat was never the enemy in your yogurt. The sugar was. Check the label. If it has more than 8 grams of sugar per serving, put it back. Number 3, instant oatmeal. Now, I know this is going to feel like a betrayal. Oatmeal is the poster child of heart-healthy, doctor-approved breakfast foods, and whole steel-cut oats prepared properly can indeed be a reasonable option for many people with diabetes. But instant oatmeal is a completely different product. The processing that makes those oats cook in 60 seconds also strips away the structural integrity of the grain. Think of it this way, steel-cut oats are like a stack of bricks. Your body has to break them apart one at a time, so the glucose enters slowly. Instant oats are like a pile of sand. There is nothing left to slow the breakdown, so the sugar floods in all at once. A 2016 study published in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition confirmed that steel-cut oats produced a significantly lower glycemic and insulin response compared to instant oats in subjects with type 2 diabetes, and that is before you add the brown sugar and dried fruit that come in most flavored packets. I had a patient named Denise, 54, a nurse who worked night shifts and relied on those maple-flavored instant oatmeal packets because she could prepare them in the break room in 2 minutes. Her A1C had been stuck at 7.8 for over a year despite metformin and careful dinners. When we switched her morning oatmeal to a batch of steel-cut oats she prepared on Sunday nights and reheated through the week, topped with a tablespoon of almond butter and a small handful of blueberries for protein and healthy fat, her A1C dropped to 7.1 in 3 months. Same food category, completely different metabolic outcome. If you love oatmeal, you do not have to give it up. You have to change the kind you buy and the way you prepare it. That distinction matters enormously, and it is one that most nutrition labels will never make clear to you. Now, here is where I need to take you somewhere you probably did not expect to go in a video about breakfast. Number 4, your own stress hormones. This one is not about food at all, and it is the hidden factor that makes every single breakfast mistake worse. Between roughly 4 and 8 in the morning, your body goes through something called the dawn phenomenon. Your liver releases a surge of stored glucose to get you ready for the day, and your adrenal glands release cortisol and cortisol, your primary stress hormone. In a person without diabetes, the pancreas simply releases a matching wave of insulin and blood sugar stays level. But in type 2 diabetes, your cells are already resistant to insulin, so that morning glucose dump has nowhere to go. It just stacks on top of whatever your breakfast adds. This is why I see patients whose fasting blood sugar at 6 in the morning is 110, but by 8 hours before eating a single bite, it has drifted up to 135. A 2017 study published in Diabetes Care confirmed that the dawn phenomenon contributes significantly to overall hyperglycemia in patients with type 2 diabetes and is often underrecognized as a treatment target. What this means practically is that your body is already in a vulnerable, insulin-resistant state when you sit down for breakfast. Every gram of fast-acting sugar you eat in the morning hits harder than it would at lunch or dinner. This is the biological reason breakfast mistakes matter more than any other meal. And it is exactly why the number 1 worst breakfast I am going to reveal in a few minutes does such outsized damage. Tell me in the comments, how many milligrams per deciliter does your blood sugar typically rise between waking up and eating breakfast? I am curious how many of you are seeing the dawn phenomenon without knowing it has a name. Number 5, Toast with honey or jam. I meet patients every week who have given up pancakes, given up waffles, given up sugary cereal, and feel proud that they have simplified their breakfast to just a couple of slices of toast. And I never want to take away that sense of progress because simplifying is a good instinct. But here is the issue. 2 slices of standard white bread contain roughly 30 grams of refined carbohydrate. Add a tablespoon of honey, which many people consider a natural, healthier alternative to sugar, and you are adding another 17 grams of pure sugar. That combination enters your bloodstream with almost no resistance. There is very little protein to slow digestion, very little fat, and very little fiber. If you love toast in the morning, make 2 changes. First, switch to a true whole grain bread where the first ingredient is whole grain and the fiber content is at least 3 grams per slice. Second, top it with a tablespoon of natural almond butter or a quarter of a mashed avocado. The fat and protein create that braking mechanism your blood sugar desperately needs in the morning. It is still toast. It still takes 2 minutes, but the glucose curve looks entirely different. And if you currently take metformin and find that toast is one of the few things that settles your stomach in the morning, that is completely understandable. Just make the swap to whole grain with a fat or protein topping, and you get the stomach comfort without the glucose spike. Now, what if I told you the next breakfast food on this list has an even more deceptive health reputation than oatmeal? Number 6, granola. Granola has perhaps the most successful marketing campaign in the history of food. It sits in the health food aisle. It comes in bags with pictures of mountains and hiking trails. It has words like ancient grains and superfood clusters printed on the front. But turn that bag around and look at the nutrition label, and you will find that a single half-cup serving chi, which is far less than most people pour into a bowl, often contains 12 to 16 grams of added sugar, plus dense carbohydrates from oats and dried fruit. That small bowl can easily deliver 40 to 50 grams of total carbohydrate with a high glycemic load. If you are currently taking sulfonylurias like glipizide or glyburide alongside a high-carb breakfast like granola, you may be creating a dangerous roller coaster. A sharp glucose spike followed by a medication-driven crash that puts you at risk for hypoglycemia later in the morning. That is a safety concern I need you to take seriously and discuss with your prescribing physician. The better move, if you love that crunchy texture, is a small handful, 2 tablespoons of raw mixed nuts or seeds sprinkled on top of plain Greek yogurt. You get the crunch, the satisfaction, and a fraction of the blood sugar impact. Now, the number one worst breakfast for diabetes, the one I teased at the beginning, the one you will find recommended on website after website, cold breakfast cereal, not just the obviously sugary kinds, not just the frosted, the candy-colored, the ones marketed to children. I am talking about the cereals that market themselves as heart-healthy, whole grain, high fiber, and diabetic friendly. Here is why. Let me tell you about a patient of mine named Margaret, 72 years old, a retired librarian, meticulous about her health. Margaret came to me with an A1C of 8.2 despite taking metformin, despite walking 30 minutes every day, despite doing, in her words, everything right. When I put a continuous glucose monitor on her arm and tracked her for 2 weeks, the pattern was unmistakable. Every single morning, within 45 minutes of eating her bowl of bran flakes with skim milk, her blood sugar rocketed to between 210 and 240. Every single morning. She was devastated because that cereal had the American Heart Association checkmark on the box. Here is the mechanism. Even whole grain cold cereals have been processed at extremely high temperatures and pressures during manufacturing. That processing gelatinizes the starch, which means it breaks down into glucose in your digestive system almost instantly, faster than table sugar in some clinical tests. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition demonstrated that many common breakfast cereals, including those marketed as healthy, have glycemic index values between 70 and 85 tier higher than white bread, When you add skim milk, which contains lactose sugar but almost no fat to slow absorption, and you eat this during the dawn phenomenon window when your body is already flooded with cortisol and resistant to insulin, you have created a perfect storm. It is the single most damaging meal I see on glucose monitors, week after week, patient after patient. Margaret was heartbroken, but she was also determined. We replaced her cereal with 2 scrambled eggs, a small handful of sautéed spinach, and half of a small avocado. Her morning readings dropped from an average of 225 to an average of 145 in 11 days. Her A1C came down to 7.0 at her next quarterly check. She told me she was angry, not at me, but at the years she had spent trusting a label instead of understanding the science. Controlling your blood sugar at breakfast does not have to mean punishing yourself or giving up everything you enjoy. It means understanding that your body is uniquely vulnerable in the morning hours and choosing foods that work with that biology instead of against it. Protein, healthy fat, fiber, and whole unprocessed ingredients, those are your allies before 9 a.m. And the cold cereal sitting on your counter right now, no matter what the box says, is very likely your single biggest obstacle to better morning numbers. If any of this surprised you, I need you to do 2 things for me. First, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications because I release new evidence-based diabetes content every week, and I do not want you to miss the strategies that could genuinely change your health. Second, tell me in the comments, which of these breakfasts have you been eating because you thought it was safe? I read every single comment, and your honesty helps other viewers realize they are not alone in this. And if you have a friend or family member who is struggling with their morning blood sugar and still pouring a bowl of cereal every day, send this video directly to them. It could be the thing that finally makes the numbers click. If you want my free 7-day blood sugar breakfast plan with specific meals, portions, and shopping lists, the link is in the description below. Watch this video next on the 5 foods that actually lower blood sugar. Number 3 works faster than most people expect. The link is on your screen right now.